Deep in the northern region of Maine, hidden far from any marked road or tourist trail, lies a stretch of woodland known to locals only as the Silent Pine Reserve. On maps, it looks ordinary, just another green patch among thousands of others. But to those who live nearby, it has another name, the forest that whispers names. The first reports came in the early 1960s. Hunters returning from trips along the forest edge began speaking about strange sounds at night, not animal calls or wind, but voices. Human voices. One man, a hunter named Carl Henson, claimed he was camping by the river when he heard his own name whispered clearly from the darkness. Thinking it was a friend playing tricks, he called back. No one answered. When he shone his flashlight into the trees, all he saw were tall pines swaying gently and mist rolling low across the ground. He packed up his camp that same night and never went back. Locals dismissed his story as nerves. But over the years, more stories surfaced. Hikers lost deep inside claimed to hear murmurs, whispers echoing between the trees. Some said the forest could mimic the voices of loved ones, a mother's call, a friend's laughter, even the voice of someone who died years ago. Those who heard their names spoken clearly, it said, were never seen again. The first official disappearance occurred in 1972. A pair of college students from Orono, documenting regional folklore, entered the forest with a recorder and notebooks. Their last entry, found later near a fallen tree, simply read, "We heard it. It said my name." Their car was still parked on the dirt road, but the two of them vanished completely. Since then, locals avoid the area altogether. The few who've dared to enter describe an eerie, unnatural silence. Birds stop singing. The wind dies. The air feels heavy, pressing down on your chest, as though the forest is holding its breath. Then, faintly, from somewhere behind you, comes a whisper. Always low, always clear. And if it says your name, you run. Some believe the phenomenon is linked to a series of colonial settlements that vanished in the 1700s. Historical records mention a village built near the same area that disappeared without a trace, livestock, people, even buildings gone. Only charred foundations remained. It said the settlers had performed strange rituals in the woods to protect themselves from disease, offering names to unseen forces in exchange for survival. But something went wrong. Instead of protection, they invited something that listens. Modern investigators have tried to record the phenomenon. One team from a Boston university set up microphones deep in the forest for a week. On the third night, their equipment captured faint, overlapping voices, hundreds, whispering in unison. When analyzed, one phrase repeated clearly, "Stay with us." Even stranger, during playback, one of the researchers turned pale. Among the whispers, he heard his own name. Days later, he went missing during a follow-up trip. His colleagues said they found his camera abandoned near the tree line. The footage showed him walking deeper into the woods, calling, "Who's there?" The final frame was a blur of movement, like the trees themselves were closing in. Locals now say the forest is alive, not in the way plants are alive, but conscious. A presence that remembers every voice that's ever entered it. It calls them back, mimicking their tone, their breath, their words. One theory suggests the forest consumes not the body, but the soul, using the echo of your name as a tether, pulling you in until there's nothing left. Despite the warnings, people still go. Urban explorers, thrill seekers, YouTubers chasing views. But none stay long. Every year, a few vanish without explanation. Authorities blame the terrain, thick woods, old mines, wild animals. But the locals know better. They say once the forest learns your name, it never forgets. That's when it begins calling. The year was 2019 when a small paranormal investigation team, known as Nightline Explorers, announced their plan to explore the forest that locals warned everyone to avoid, the infamous Silent Pine Reserve. They weren't amateurs. The team had filmed dozens of investigations in supposedly haunted locations across the country, abandoned hospitals, deserted mining towns, forgotten motels. But this time, they wanted something truly unexplained. Something untouched. Something that could make their channel go viral. Their plan was simple: spend one night in the forest, record everything, and leave before sunrise. The group of four arrived just before dusk. Evan, the cameraman; Sarah, the sound technician; Liam, the researcher; and Derek, the host and voice of their channel. At first, it felt like any other shoot. The air smelled of pine and damp soil, and golden light filtered through the trees as they unpacked their gear. Sarah laughed when her microphone caught the sound of rustling leaves. Evan teased her, saying, "Maybe that's the forest whispering already." They didn't know how close to the truth he was. As night fell, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew still, unnaturally still. The usual symphony of crickets and frogs fell silent. Derek commented softly into the camera, "It's too quiet. I don't even hear the wind anymore." Their flashlights carved weak tunnels of light through the mist. The trees stood impossibly tall and dense, their trunks spaced so evenly it almost looked planned, like pillars in an ancient cathedral. The deeper they went, the heavier the air felt. Each breath was thick, damp, and oddly cold, though it was midsummer. Around 11:47 p.m., Liam picked up something strange on his recorder, a faint sound under their voices. When he boosted the volume, a whisper surfaced. Just one word. A name. Evan. They froze. Sarah turned, her light sweeping the trees. "Who said that?" she asked. Evan laughed nervously, pretending it was a joke. "Okay, which one of you planned that?" "Seriously?" But no one answered. The others looked at him blankly. Derek pointed his flashlight into the darkness, but it only caught the fog between the pines. Then, from somewhere deep within the forest, came the whisper again.
"Clear this time."
Ivain, a man's voice, drawn out, calm, and terrifyingly close. Evan spun around, his camera shaking. "Who's there?" he shouted. No response. Only the echo of his own voice bouncing back through the trees. Sarah's recorder started to hiss with static. The audio meter spiked, though there was no visible source. Then the whisper changed, a different tone now, higher, almost like a woman's voice calling softly. "Sarah?" She froze. Her mouth went dry. It wasn't just hearing her name, it was hearing it spoken exactly as her mother used to say it, the same inflection, the same warmth. Except her mother had died 2 years ago. "Stop it," she whispered. "That's not funny." But the forest didn't stop. The voices multiplied, one whisper overlapping another, then another, until it sounded like dozens of people murmuring just beyond the edge of the light. Panic broke. Derek shouted for everyone to head back toward the trail. But every direction looked the same: identical trees, identical fog. Even the ground seemed to shift underfoot. Their GPS units blinked red, showing no signal. The compass needles spun wildly in circles. They tried to retrace their steps, marking trees with bright tape. But when they looked back minutes later, the marks were gone. The tape had vanished, replaced by smooth, untouched bark. It was as if the forest was healing itself, erasing their path. Hours blurred. The group grew exhausted and disoriented. The whispers followed, sometimes far, sometimes close enough to feel breath on their necks. At one point, Evan thought he saw someone standing between two trees, tall, thin, motionless. When he blinked, the figure was gone. But on the footage recovered later, a faint outline remained, visible for just a few frames. By 3 a.m., Sarah's flashlight battery died. She stumbled, fell into damp soil, and screamed as something cold brushed her arm. Not an animal, not wind, but fingers. Invisible fingers. Liam tried to help her up, but the whispers rose into a chorus. Hundreds of voices, all speaking at once, all saying one thing: their names.
Evan. Sarah.
Liam. Derek. Again and again, like a chant. They ran. Derek's voice cracked as he shouted, "Keep running. Don't stop." But the lights flickered, and in one instant, Sarah turned to see that Evan was gone. His flashlight lay spinning on the ground, its beam cutting across the mist. The voices grew louder, almost screaming now. Then silence. When Sarah stumbled out of the forest at dawn, she was the only one left. Her clothes were torn, her hands bleeding, her face pale as death. She kept repeating, "It said my name. It said my name." Rescuers found only fragments of their gear the next morning: cameras, batteries, and a single recorder still running. The last 3 minutes of audio were studied by technicians. Beneath the static and crackle, you can hear it. Faint voices whispering the names of all 4 team members. But there's a 5th name at the end, one that doesn't belong to anyone known. A name spoken so softly, it feels like it's calling whoever listens to the tape. Some say people who've heard that recording have gone missing too. Sarah tried to move on. She changed her number, deleted all her social media, and moved 3 states away. But she told a journalist once that every night, around 3 a.m., her phone would ring once and stop. No number, no voicemail, just a faint hiss on the line, followed by her name. She said the voice never sounded threatening. It was calm, familiar, as if someone she once knew was still trying to reach her from inside the forest. Experts have tried to explain the phenomenon: infrasound, magnetic interference, or shared hallucination caused by fear. But there's no scientific answer for how the forest could mimic a person's voice, or why it only speaks when you're alone. Locals say the forest isn't haunted by ghosts. It is the ghost. A single, ancient consciousness spread across the roots and trees, feeding on sound, memory, and identity. Once it knows your name, it owns a part of you, and it can call you back anytime it wants. That's why, to this day, no one speaks their full name near the forest. Some even refuse to think it. They believe that names are invitations, and the forest is always listening. They say if you ever wander near Silent Pine and the air suddenly goes cold, if the wind stops and the trees seem to lean closer, don't speak.
Don't breathe.
Don't listen. Because once you hear your name whispered from the dark, it's already too late. Even now, hikers report hearing faint voices when the wind dies, voices that seem to echo from nowhere, repeating names that don't belong to anyone there. And sometimes, just sometimes, if you stand quietly enough, you might hear a whisper too. Maybe it's your name. Maybe it's someone else's. But either way, don't answer. Because once the forest that whispers names knows you, it never forgets.